One. Okay, everyone, welcome to our next podcast of the Dame podcast. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about the games and everything launch titles into the end of 2017. I'm Raid, joined by my good man
Jellyfishing.
Right on. What more needs to be said? The only thing we have in news from this week, there's a lot of little quotes that happen that might get sprinkled in through the discussion today. But again, the big thing was Fire Emblem Heroes was released. The gacha is in full effect, and it seems to have been doing pretty well for itself. And overall, I think I've seen more positive reactions to it. And that's about all we got in regards to news. So we do want to jump right in. So Jellyfishing, talk to me about the Switch and its games. What are your thoughts on the lineup so far, and what Nintendo's revealed that's coming to this little console?
Well, I know this is not just me. This is a lot of people that are really worried about what games are. I mean, Nintendo came out and told us how many games were planned for Switch, and I think, it was a pretty big number. What was it, like 80 at first or something? Or did they say 50 and then it moved up to 80, something like that?
I think it was like 50 with like 70 different publishers, and then it went up to like 80 with 100 different publishers or something like that.
Okay. So I mean, that's good to hear, but a lot of people are still saying, okay, Zelda's great, but what other games are there? And I, as a Nintendo fan, I'm very curious as well. I was sold on Splatoon and Zelda already, but that is an interesting thing to think about, because launch window is kind of important. And not that, if you fail launch window, can you do good? Yes, because 3DS. But that doesn't mean it's not important,
Right. There's no question that I think as you browse the great interwebs and you look at opinions and thoughts, at least amongst the majority of the enthusiast crowd, the lineup is probably the most talked about thing, aside from maybe like the price.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
The most logical one out there. Yes.
Yeah. And I think launch windows are always an interesting topic when it comes to brand new consoles, especially with late, where remasters come in and indie games can come in and sort of pad stuff out. But how many big games and how soon are we going to get them? When you buy it, what's going to be available? Because when you drop 300, 400, what have you, onto a brand new machine, you want to feel like it's like one of the funnest times to spend the most on it for a lot of people. Small anecdotal evidence, but when I worked at Best Buy, I mean, that was generally the time you wanted to push accessory sales, and a lot of companies did big discounts when I was there, with like, buy a console, get $10 off a second controller and stuff like that.
And I think it's important to look at Wii U as well, because I feel like a large portion of what could have went, or reasons that the Wii U didn't do as good as it could have. Like, it had some pretty interesting titles at the start, but did it have anything to keep pushing? And there were lots of games that were delayed or that were exclusive, and then they were changed to not exclusive. So
I agree wholeheartedly with that point, and that's kind of and Nintendo's even gone and pretty much said this on record, but one of the things they're most interested in when it comes to their launch area and moving towards the end of this year is momentum.
Yeah.
They want to keep the Switch in the public sphere. They want it to be talked about. They want to keep buzz about the console throughout the whole year. And I've always felt, based on what I see, that they're really kind of culminating this to the holiday season.
Yeah.
Because I agree with what you said. There's definitely some things the Wii U did wrong, for sure. But I do think that one of the things that hit it the hardest was that gap that happened. I think it was like around February of, so like a 2 or 3 months out into its lifespan, where everything just kind of dried up. And I think you touched on this as well. I think as we look at the Switch, I think the biggest thing they need to avoid is delays. While also, of course, trying to court third parties and indies and all that. But overall, I think if the stuff that they have announced starts to get delayed, I think that's going to really make people a lot more nervous about jumping on the Switch, because I think they're kind of using this whole year as sort of the time for the adoption. Like this first year is all one big push, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's just take a look at what titles are actually confirmed for launch in North America real quick. So we've got one.
I say we start looking at some launch titles and just start, and then we can go further as we pass those and just talk about what we think.
Okay, so 1-2 Switch.
Let's just stop right there, because I think there's a lot to say about 1-2 Switch. What a game, right?
Yes.
What a game. Out of everything that Nintendo is kind of pushing, I kind of like that isn't an indie title, that is straight up first party. They're talking about it. It's going to be at all the demos. I do not think 1-2 Switch is going to sell very well. Just straight up, I don't think it'll do well.
And I mean, the past 2 consoles, they're some of their biggest selling games, or I actually don't know how much Nintendo Land sold, but the fact that it is not a packaged, the fact that it's not packaged with the Switch is going to be pretty big, I think. Like, recently Nintendo, their past 2 consoles, they've had here's the system, and they also had one that didn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Nintendo Land was only in the 32 gig bundle or something like that. I think there was an 8 gig.
I'm curious how many people actually bought the 8 gig, but anyways.
Well, they discontinued it pretty fast.
Yeah. The fact that,
at least in the States,
the fact that they don't even have a system that is bundled with, I think that kind of, puts the nails in the coffin. Like, it's definitely one of those.
For the game or for the
console?
Not
for the console. For the game. Definitely for the game.
Okay.
Like, I think the game is interesting in what it's trying to, do. It's what Nintendo Land and Wii Sports were for the past 2 systems. It shows off what's kind of new and what kind of things you can do with the new controller. But that worked for Wii. It didn't necessarily work for Wii U. I love Nintendo Land, but it really didn't do that well. I mean, and it probably would have done a lot worse.
Yeah, it couldn't have done any better than the Wii U itself
Exactly.
did, and that didn't. We know how well that did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a pale shadow in comparison to anything Wii Sports or Wii Fit or Wii Party was able to manage. Even though I would, if I could only have one of those 4 games, I would take Nintendo Land any day of the week.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
But yeah, oh my gosh, bringing Nintendo Land around. And we could. I don't want to dovetail too much into Nintendo Land, but Nintendo Land is an absolutely great party game. No question. Anywho, so in regards to 1-2 Switch, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not it should be a WarioWare title, and I think the biggest things that are hurting 1-2 Switch is I don't necessarily think it needs to be a WarioWare, but the thing that WarioWare would do for it is amongst the gaming crowd that sees WarioWare, they're at least going to feel like it's going to have more longevity to the purchase. Like there's a bit of a higher level of quality that you expect out of WarioWare, even though Game & Wario had some accusations of not having a ton of content. It still felt more like a complete game.
Yeah.
WarioWare would kind of. I feel like WarioWare for the gaming group says to people, "Hey, look, this is a game that we're putting out," because it's very difficult to not look at 1-2 Switch and say, "Hey, look, this is just a random bunch of mini games for $60, which is not an easy sell because you can buy mobile games for a lot less than that, indie games for a lot less than that, that'll give you quote unquote more bang for your buck. Quote unquote. And I say that because obviously this thing is going to excel in a party kind of a situation, as far as we can tell, anyways. Unless there's some other stuff they haven't told us, because we just recently got all of the what appears to be all the mini games. I think they said there's 28 mini games total.
How many was that?
28
Sorry?
mini games. 28.
28. Okay.
And most of them take like a minute to do.
Okay.
And there's not like anything like online leaderboards or those kind of things that would make the game feel like it will last longer. And so I think with it, I mean, I don't even know if it needs to be a pack-in. I absolutely think, because I think the thing this is going to really show off to people, like I do think that, you know, the adage I hear online now that's 1-2 Switch plus alcohol makes a really good time. But I think the thing that's really going to blow people away, I think, is going to be the HD Rumble.
Yeah.
Which is kind of that, like, I hear a silent buzz about the HD Rumble, but I just don't see... Like, but that's going to require that, like Wii Sports was able to do, is to get into people's houses. And I just don't see this game. I mean, I don't hate its presentation, but I just don't see people dropping $60 for this game. I mean, there will be people who will buy it, and you'll probably get some good stories out of it. But overall, I think is something that generally looks like it works as a demonstrator, like you said. $60 isn't going to be able to do it for people, at least not with the kind of content they're seeing.
Yeah.
I can maybe see it at like 30, 40, but even then it might be a bit of a hard sell.
And I mean, you know, going back to should it have been a WarioWare title, the thing about that is if it was, probably more people would buy it just because it's Nintendo and fans stick with games for the most part. You know, fans stick with franchises and WarioWare doesn't have a bad name to it. Like, I don't know. I haven't really heard hate about Wario before, like the Wario games. I've heard Game of Wario wasn't good because it didn't have enough content, but it wasn't like, you know, the games were stupid or anything like that.
Right.
And so when you're coming out with these, I was just saying, when you're coming out with these kind of new things, it is a risk, and I don't think the way they did it was necessarily successful. I will be buying it because I'm very curious, but. And I want to play with people who aren't necessarily gamers. But as a gamer, would I have bought it for myself? Probably not. So. Yeah.
Well, and like I even think because like Nintendo Land, I made a conscious effort where I was living at the time to like bring it to people's houses. Like I was a Nintendo Land evangelist. Like I would tell people we should get together. I'm going to bring my Wii U. I'm going to bring 3D World and Nintendo Land, and you're going to have a great, like, it's going to be super fun.
Yeah.
Now I'm living in a different place than I did when the Wii U came out, and like, I don't know a ton of people around here, and like, I don't see the only reason I would want to get that game is if I had that kind of group of people close enough and ready to go that I could feel like, hey, because like right now it's me and my wife, and like we would probably enjoy it for maybe a day, and then that would be it. And for $60, that's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And admittedly, this is on my end. As we are looking towards getting a Switch, we don't have a ton of extra money to get that. And like, if I'm gonna get a second game, it's most likely going to be Bomberman.
Yeah.
Spoilers for Raid's opinions on the launch titles, but that's, I mean, and I don't see myself necessarily grabbing something until we get to like ARMS or Splatoon. Oh, and Snipper Clips. Shoot. So there you go, 3 things. So yeah, that's overall. I would give 1-2 Switch a pretty, like, it's a flub, a flounder. I feel like it's gonna fall on its face, kind of like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival or Wii Party U.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but c'est la vie. I actually think Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival is a pretty good analogy to what I expect to have happen to this game.
That actually sounds pretty good, yeah.
It's pushed like a big game, but people quickly recognize it just doesn't have that same level of content to be for everyone. Now, like you said, if it was pack-in, maybe, or if it was like $20, maybe, but because I'm pretty sure Amiibo Festival was sold at $60, which is
ridiculous. Yeah.
I was at Best Buy at that time, and I can't tell you how many of those Animal Crossing Amiibos and those copies of those games we had lying around. Anecdotal evidence, go!
Yeah.
All right, what else we got? Launch title. What else can we talk about? We don't want to... This should not be a 1-2 Switch podcast.
So, yeah. Human Resource Machine. I don't know anything about this. So if you have anything to talk about it.
So here, I can go into those. That's World of Goo.
Oh, okay. They are...
Little Inferno and Human Resource Machine. And these were fairly recently confirmed, I believe. But so those are all old games. You can get those all on Steam right now. I actually played World of Goo on the Wii when I think it was a Wii exclusive back at the time. They are good games. Yeah. No question.
World of Goo is pretty cool.
They're fun games. So yeah, but they're not new, which is hard, but they're fun. So I'll give that. I'm glad it's there by all means. I haven't played Human Resource Machine, but like that's gonna tempt me. But...
Yeah, we're Nintendo fans. We love rebuying old games that we've already paid for, so it's good, man.
Oh, is this a virtual console podcast all of a sudden? Dude, you're not wrong. Hey, I won't go into it. All
right.
Let's move on. What else we got?
Setsuna from Square Enix.
I've heard good things about it. I don't know a ton about it myself, but I've heard good things, and I'm pretty sure it's out.
I believe so, yes.
On the Vita, I think, and maybe PS4.
That's one game I saw, and I was like, I could actually... Like, it looks interesting. I could see myself...
Hey, I'll tell you this right now. Like, I'll give you another spoiler, TLDR. If you're a Square Enix fan, the Switch is not a bad console for you. Minus Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, but they got Square Enix looks like they're putting some pretty decent support onto this sucker. And actually, they had an interview today with a guy from Final Fantasy 15, and he's like, we have a lot of people interested in developing for the Switch, but 15's not going to happen most likely. Unless something changes down the line.
Yeah.
But,
so it's on PC.
I mean, we're getting Skyrim 7 years late or whatever, so...
Yeah.
I'm not playing 15. Anyway, sorry.
Well, I was just saying, it's already available on PC and PlayStation 4 already, so I am set to that. Okay, then next, what did we have? Where did I put that? Okay. Just Dance. Haha.
I don't think anyone needs to say anything about Just Dance. Like, that's just one of those, you gotta have Just Dance.
Yeah. Like,
I don't even think that the franchise is quite as popular as it used to be, but it's not mad it's there by any means.
Yeah, like, if someone had it, I mean, it's kind of a fun party game sometimes, but it's not my choice.
Never played it. My wife played Just Dance at different people's houses. I think she had it growing up. But...
It was fun. I don't know how it's... I'm curious to see how it uses the controllers, but if it's just... I assume it's probably going to be very similar to how we did it.
Here, that's a good point. Let me piggyback off that, because I think this is something that's going to be cool for almost any new game, is just what you said. The HD Pro Rumble is honestly fascinating me, and I hope... I've heard some pretty hype stuff about it, and I hope that developers can come up with lots of cool ways to integrate it, because that's going to be one of those things that you wouldn't think is going to sell to people, but I bet a lot of people are going to really come to like it. If they can do it well, because I mean, just some of the little stuff they've done, I bet they could do some pretty fun stuff, and the fact that the Pro Controller has it is all I need to know. So I hope we get to see some cool stuff with HD Pro Rumble.
And I mean, this is going out there, but a Metroid title with HD Rumble, I could see that being pretty intense.
Metroid.
Anyways,
I don't even know what's a Metroid. Why can't Metroid crawl?
Oh, Miiverse, we're gonna miss you. Okay.
I'm not in the camp that thinks Metroid is dead. I very much believe they're working on one. That's me. It could be an optimist.
If not for the Switch, then for the next system, or the next one, or the next one. But, they're working on it.
You're me. I was just going to say, I would be here, you can put me as 2017 Wonder Raid prediction. I am betting there will be a Switch or a Metroid game on the Switch.
Yeah, well, I thought there was gonna be on the Wii U, so I was on that party. Just so you know.
Yeah, I'm knowing the great failure that prediction was. I'm still willing to make this prediction.
All right.
You should have predicted 3DS.
All right, you Ridley fan. Ridley's in Smash Bros. There you go. Okay, let's go.
No way. I'm getting Mickey Mouse first.
Okay, so next title, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, the one you hear the most about.
As you well should. Because, admittedly, I think Breath of the Wild is the only reason that the Switch actual launch day lineup isn't hot garbage. Because, like, not to disparage some of those other games, because I think Super Bomberman R is awesome from the little stuff I've seen. I mean, Bomberman coming back to form, the fact that Konami is even making a Bomber game is awesome. But there's absolutely no question that without Breath of the Wild, it would just be abysmal.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think Breath of the Wild is a strong enough title to almost carry the system on its own, even with the Wii U launch.
I was very surprised that ARMS wasn't a launch title with how much they showed it,
and we don't know when, because April is Mario Kart, right? I believe they've said ARMS is Q1, Q2.
Spring 2017 is what they said, I think. So,
which, if I were a betting man, I would say we're getting Mario Kart in April. I would bet ARMS in May, and then Splatoon in June or July. Let's come back to ARMS. I think there's more to talk about ARMS, but let's keep looking at launch.
Okay, so
Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
I think Breath of the Wild looks like there is a lot of hype in the video game industry right now. We like to hype titles a lot, whether it's the new Final Fantasy VII remakes or other just No Man's Sky, whatever it is. Hype is a huge part of game culture, and a lot of people you'll hear now tell you, don't let your hype get out of control. Don't let that kind of stuff run away with you. And I think, honestly, Breath of the Wild looks like it will be able to overall deliver on the hype. Honestly, I'm everything I see is just like, yeah, this game just looks straight up amazing. So I don't know if I can do a better review than that, but so far, like, obviously I haven't played it, but it looks like it's gonna just be awesome. You know,
it's been interesting because I've been having waves with this game. Like, there are sometimes I'm just
Really?
like so excited, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, like I'll obviously get it and play it, and it's Zelda, and I'm gonna have fun. But like, my hype has been coming in waves with this game.
Generally, anytime I go on the NeoGAF and I see people posting GIFs of like the cutscenes or just them running around, it gets my hype back.
Yeah. And I mean, the trailer that they showed off in the presentation, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, that was pretty darn cool. That got my hype up.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is like, when they first showed it off, there was a lot of the whole, look, it's open world, and not a whole lot of, look, this is Zelda. You know?
Oh, okay.
Like, look, you can do all this stuff that you can do in Assassin's Creed, and you can do all this stuff you can do in Skyrim, but it's Link.
It's Skyrim, but in Hyrule.
Yeah. But, like...
The Elder Scrolls Hyrule
And, you know,
edition.
I like Skyrim, and I think those games are really cool and, you know, fun. But, like, Zelda, I like my soundtracks, and I like my villages with random people saying stupid things, and I like my dungeons, and I kind of like how they're taking it in a new direction, but at the same time, there's, like, a part of me that's like, oh, I kind of miss linear Zelda. Like, I love linear Zelda.
Interesting. That's interesting because honestly, I couldn't be more thrilled with the way Aonuma's been making Breath of the Wild. Yeah. I think the way he's looked at feedback and tried to deliver on that, I think has been almost exemplary. Like, I think almost all of Nintendo departments, if they aren't already, should follow suit. I mean, I'll do more spoilers, but I think the best two, like off the top of my head, like design groups or people that I think are best at Nintendo right now is Aonuma's team and the Splatoon team.
Yeah, the Splatoon team's doing real good.
Sakurai doesn't count.
Sakurai is Sakurai. No other explanation
Exactly.
needed.
Daddy
We
Samurai.
are done.
But yeah, so I think I'm so excited. I mean, then again, wouldn't you pay $60 for a giant burning simulator?
Oh, what?
A giant simulator where you can grab a torch and burn whatever
That
you
is
want,
true.
which is what it looks like Breath of the Wild.
Well, I mean,
really
even
is.
in any Zelda title, you could do that to some extent. And did we all do it? Of course we did. Burning stuff,
But
breaking
yeah,
stuff.
I think
That's what It's like those kids that all they did was break the jars. This game is their dream game because they can break anything and blow anything up.
they'll find there's a jar heaven or something where the players can unlock that has just infinite spawning jars.
And I'm very interesting to see how much is voice acted, which
It looked like all of it.
except obviously Link. So
Yeah, well, Link represents handicapped gamers with a speech impediment.
and here's the other thing about this game that like has me a little worried about it not being linear. Like I love how it's open world and everything, but they set like this is something that they've actually said like if you wanted to, you could go directly to the final boss and try to beat him at the very start of the game. Which to me is just like that sounds like a sin. Like you'd go to hell if you did that. But like I don't necessarily like I like Metroid where like there is a story but you don't necessarily have to be involved with it. Like that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But like Zelda, like I loved being involved with the story in Zelda. And like so I hope even if it's not linear, like the driving story is really strong because that's what I really like in a Zelda game. And they haven't really showed us much about the story.
I know there's been new videos and stuff that have been popping out through the week. I have avoided them. I don't want to.
But yeah,
I don't. I will say to that, I'll say is Chrono Trigger did it just fine. I think they'll pull it off.
I mean, the Zelda. Personally, I don't think the Zelda team has failed too much. Some people will highly disagree with me.
I definitely think there's stuff to criticize, but I mean, I'm in the camp. I really like Skyward Sword.
I could say something that would get me put on the cross right away, but I don't think I like
You like Wands of Gamelon?
Oh no. That's technically not Nintendo, so.
That's true. Philips CDI or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh boy!
I'm
so hungry. I could eat an Octorok.
I liked a certain DS Zelda that has a lot of hate. Anyways, let's continue.
All right. I won't probe. What else? What other do we got for launch?
Little Inferno, which is also the same company, Tomorrow Corporation. That was a Wii U title, correct?
I think it came out on the Wii U.
Yeah, I think it did. I remember seeing it in like the indie titles. Okay, so anyways, just group that together with the other two games.
Yeah, Human Resource Machine is the other one.
And World of Goo. Okay, Skylanders.
It's Skylanders. I don't think Skylanders is nearly as strong as it used to be, so I'm just gonna shrug on that one. But that's one of those things. Again, it's kind of like Just Dance, where it's like, if it wasn't there, it would be worse than if it was. Yeah. Kind of a thing.
Well, I'm curious because how many like serious gamers that are going to be carrying their systems with them play Skylanders? That's what I'm curious.
All I hear is anecdotally that some stores are downsizing their toys to life section. Yeah. So, and I know Disney Infinity is scrapped.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much just Skylanders and Lego Dimensions and but Amiibos are almost always in the Nintendo section. Yeah. So I don't know if Skylanders has the same market power that it used to. I mean, but again, I think the fact it's more important that it's there than it is.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to see though. A lot of these games are games that have their audience. And, they're just trying to continue off of that, which is interesting.
Until we get to ARMS and Snipper Clips.
No joke.
but that's not launched.
Yeah.
So
So
anyway.
okay, Skylanders. It's Skylanders. I don't know how many of the people that saw Switch and said, "I want to buy this," will be getting Skylanders, or maybe they have kids that want to play Skylanders. So there you go.
Yeah, I see that. I see that as more of a Christmas
Yeah.
thing, like a parents' game.
And that was kind of
But I don't know. I don't know.
that
the
was
numbers.
kind of a selling thing, at least for the Wii U in Japan, which I think is hilarious. Like, I
Interesting.
saw people talk about this on Twitter. Like a lot of dads, they're like, "Oh, the Switch is going to be great because I can take it with me, stop my kids from playing it, and then when I come back, they can play it. Like, I can control the amount they play because I'm taking it with me."
Is it?
Yeah.
Which is funny because like the parental controls video on is like Nintendo's like third most Switch related viewed, or something like that. Or it was like considered like, I think it was when they did that first like Switch press release. It was like the third most viewed out of all those videos they released. Which, apart from it just being straight up amazing, I think that's funny. I mean,
Yeah.
Nintendo definitely takes its parental
Nintendo's
controls
listening to this
seriously.
podcast. We know it. Nintendo, make more of those. Like, we want to see that kind of video.
The best moment was when you caught the glimpse of Bowser's phone and Peach was his background.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh, and then the gifs of Bowser closing his son's eyes and people getting to edit whatever they want on the TV is always a chuckle.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, let's keep going.
Skylander Super Bomberman R, is that what it's called?
Okay. I think this one deserves more mention than some of the
Yes.
other ones we've gone into. I would argue it's probably the second title with the most oomph to it out of the lineup, which is still way far away from Breath of the Wild. But
Yeah.
like, and like, I would put it still under like a new Super Mario Brothers U probably, but a new Super Mario Brothers Switch or something like that. But like, I definitely think it's at least among some more traditional circles. I know people are super excited it's getting made.
Yeah.
And Bomberman is one of those titles that can surprise people with how well it can do.
Yeah.
Problem is, I still think it's probably priced a little too high. I think last time I checked, it was floating around 60 or 50, which I think is a little rough.
Yeah.
For that.
That's a little expensive. I mean,
A little
the
rough.
Wii...
I would feel best around 30, 40, but 40, 50 I could settle for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, Bomberman Blast, the Wii game, that was pretty cheap if I remember this correctly. That was like pretty darn cheap.
Huh.
I'm trying to remember, but
I don't remember. I got the last Bomberman game I got was on the Xbox Live 360
Yeah, I got-
one. Arcade.
I got the Wii one. The Wii one was really fun. But yeah, I mean, this is
Bomberman's a good time.
the last mainstream the first mainstream Bomberman game. Sorry, I'm struggling with words today. The first mainstream
okay.
Bomberman game we've had in 7 years, is it? Yeah,
I don't know the number, but it's been in some time.
it looks like 7 years.
And I definitely think, and one of the things I think, like in comparison to something like 1-2 Switch, it definitely feels like there's a lot to it. I believe online was already confirmed.
Yep, 8-player online.
8-player online, and just, I mean, they're gonna push the local multiplayer aspect of it anyways. But whether you're getting together with everyone and playing Mario Kart or Splatoon, Bomberman is absolutely something that should be considered for stuff like that. Like Bomberman is just a good time.
Bomberman.
And the fact that the single player is co-op is makes me
Yep.
happy. So from a Wonder Raid opinion, or out of everything launched, after Breath of the Wild, it would definitely be Bomberman R
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And I would be very happy if Bomberman makes it into Smash Brothers.
Dude, I've been pushing Bomberman for a long time, but yeah.
Blasts his way, and we'll have to come up with a cute catch card.
Okay, so yeah, I think
Bomberman explodes onto the scene.
I think it will do pretty decent, and I think that will hit the part.
I think it definitely deserves to, for whatever.
I
It's
think
worth.
it will hit
Actually,
the
I
party audience probably slightly better than the 1-2 Switch will.
Well, and I think online is what's going to be needed for that to happen, and I think that it's good that it's there. I mean, one of the cool things that we've seen in some of the other Switch games, and hopefully this one is one that takes this as well. I can only imagine it does. But the fact that, when you buy a Switch, you get 2 Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
That should give you give you 2 controllers right from the back.
That was a genius idea. Just throwing that out there. That was a genius idea to have 2 controllers.
It definitely makes it easier to sell in a retail store. Like if I'm a salesman and I'm trying to sell gaming consoles, that's how many controllers it comes with is always something people ask.
Yep.
So that's always nice.
And I mean, anyway. Wii U did great. I mean, we did great. Wii U didn't do great, sadly enough.
I was gonna say,
well, we did great at Okay, let me think about how I'm gonna put this. Okay, Wii Sports did great, but when you bought a Wii and you were, all these people were like, oh, I want to play. In order to get 4 people playing Wii Sports,
oh yeah,
that was 4 Wii controllers,
dude.
And then certain games require the nunchuck, and that's a pretty big.
Oof.
That's lots of money going on.
Well, and unfortunately, the Switch isn't fantastic in the accessories department, but at least we get 2 controllers. Right from the box.
And that's a big selling point, I think. So.
Yeah. If I never have to sync another Wiimote again, I would be a happy man. There's something that I want Nintendo to work on. There you go. Make syncing less of a pain in the butt. And make it so you can desync easy too, so that tournaments will allow pro controllers at Smash Bros. Anyways. Anything else?
World of Goo, which we talked about, and that is the US launch title.
Okay. I know Japan has a couple more.
Yep.
I know there's a lot that are March, like I believe Fast Neo Racing, Snipper Clips, a handful of The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth or whatever it's called is, I believe, confirmed launch title.
Oh yes, that is correct.
Retail.
Mm-hmm. I believe so as well.
Which I've heard a lot of different accolades for that game. It's generally considered one of the best indie titles on the market. So I actually think that's pretty cool, and I don't know if this version is technically new. Like I think you can get it on Steam right now, but it will still be very fresh. Even though it is an expansion of an older game. I think that's actually a pretty it shouldn't be carrying the lineup, but it is a good thing to see. So let's then ask the question before we get to some of the other titles. Is the launch lineup good, in your opinion?
I would say it is okay. Zelda is good. Like, Zelda will sell systems for a long time. And at launch, that's obviously going to be the case.
I'm sure we'll see a Breath of the Wild Switch bundle down the line with special Joy-Cons.
I think Zelda is the only system seller on that list, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that the launch lineup is bad, but the fact that Breath of the Wild is there, it's suddenly okay. Yeah. If somebody came up to me and said, hey, I don't think the Switch has many good games for launch, I would say, yeah, you're probably right. I think there's good games there, but for to buy it right now. Yeah. However, I would say, I think by the end of March and probably by the end of April, you've definitely got a lot of good reasons. Yeah. And especially by holiday
launch
season.
Window is looking great.
Yeah.
Launch is not looking the greatest, but when has there ever been a system that has actually had a decent, large amount of launch titles?
Yeah. I would still say it's relative to other consoles. Here's a good question. Do you think it's got a better lineup than the Wii U had?
Well,
just from games right out of the gate.
I will buy less Switch games than I bought Wii U games at launch. So there's that.
And why? Is that because of the lineup? Is it because of just different financial situation?
It's not financial situation. It is the title. A lot of the titles themselves that specifically reach out to me is really small person. So I mean, I will buy one to Switch for me and my wife, and I will buy Zelda. And for launch, that's it. I mean, Bomberman looks.
Yeah.
I wish I. Okay, so for Bomberman, it probably is. I just don't want to spend that much money on it. But that's more of a price point issue than it is.
Hey, I was gonna say that's a valid point.
Not that like I don't have enough money to buy it, but for price for what I'm getting, I don't think it's the best value right now.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, a lot of those kind of games that start out at launch get cheap pretty darn quick. So,
mm-hmm.
But for Wii U, I bought 3 games, and this one I'm only buying 2. So,
yeah. No, interesting. Yeah, and I'm pretty much a 2-game is what's grabbing me right now. Is it's Zelda and Bomberman.
Yeah. Snipperclips looks fun. Though.
However, I feel like I was gonna say, and we both keep bringing it up, and so we should probably start transitioning to some of the other games coming out throughout the year. Snipperclips looks fantastic, and that is March. I believe it's like March 26th or something.
March.
Mm-hmm. And that is, and personally, I think Zelda will last long enough, and especially if I do get Bomberman, that should last me long enough till Snipperclips, and then Yooka-Laylee, and I don't know if I'm gonna get Mario Kart. We'll have to talk about that. But Snipperclips was so I don't remember all the details, but essentially it came from some sort of like indie jam that I don't know if Nintendo put together or they just saw it and wanted to make it their own or whatever. But yeah, it was apparently a smaller group of people that threw it together, and Nintendo pretty much came in and said, "Hey, let's make this a thing." So, Snipperclips looks hilariously awesome. I think Snipperclips is going to do surprisingly well. Well, then again, when you're in that kind of a launch window, that's kind of a good place to be, because that gives people enough time to cool down with Breath of the Wild that around that time they'll start looking for something else, and Snipperclips is something. Yep. I mean, I already have Yooka-Laylee. I backed it, so I technically already own Yooka-Laylee for the Switch.
That's funny. Awesome.
And I don't remember if that's what point in April that is. If that's mid or late. I don't think it's early. I think it's mid.
For Yooka-Laylee?
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think will do really well on the Switch.
Yeah.
I don't know if people will buy the Switch for Yooka-Laylee, but I think a lot of the people who are getting Yooka-Laylee are also getting a Switch. It's just thoughts, guesses. But I think Yooka-Laylee is a great title to see on there. Because I know they're not doing a retail version, at least as far they haven't announced any dates on one yet. It says they're looking into it, but I imagine people will still be able to buy it digitally, not just those who backed it. If you can only get it if you backed it digitally, that's going to be rough. I mean, I'll still claim it. And the Wii U, they said, was one of their biggest sections of people getting Yooka-Laylee. I don't know how big into Yooka-Laylee you are, but I'm just rambling on it about it now.
I'm interested for sure. Yes, I haven't bought it yet, so.
Cool. Then I should just say Yooka-Laylee is one of my more anticipated. Let's talk one more game, and then I want to do top 3 most anticipated titles for 2017. Okay. But let's.
And are you sure we should only talk about one more game then?
Yeah. Well, we can do our top 3, and then we can talk about it next week in more detail. Because I think that could be definitely something we do next week, is go more into some of the future titles, the games we want to see them do, bar any big news. But I think ARMS we need to talk about.
Yes. I also think Splatoon we need to talk about, but we can talk about that later.
Well, all you need to do is say Splatoon looks great and it's going to do well in Japan, and it will. So therefore, Switch will do well in Japan.
I think there's a lot more to say about that, but okay.
Anyways, ARMS. Let's just start with this question. Do you think ARMS will be big?
I think it will be pretty big.
Yeah.
let's just say if ARMS was a launch title, then the number of launch titles I would be buying would have gone up, but it's not. So
you better believe it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it does.
How about I'll do some devil's advocate here. In the demo, it was a 1v1 fighting game with 5 characters shown, 3 arms each, with each arm customizable. Longevity, the depth of content, were concerns that probably arose with some people, and it being a new IP.
Yes.
Now, Nintendo has since confirmed that there are not only more characters and more stages and more arms, but there's also a lot of new modes. There's also, you can even control it with one Joy-Con. Like you can play with just one Joy-Con. They say it's not optimal and they're not designing the game around it, but it's there. Do you think this IP can make it? Do you think this IP can break out like Splatoon did?
I think it has the potential. Now, here's the thing about Splatoon as well, because when Splatoon first came out, it was extremely one-sided. I mean, you could finish the single player in, 5 hours if you really wanted to? 4 or 5 hours?
Okay, yeah.
You had an online multiplayer mode, which at launch for Splatoon was only
2 levels, right?
Yeah, it was only 2 levels, and not only that, it was also only turf war for the first couple weeks.
That's
is that
right.
A week or so? I don't remember.
Yeah.
So it was only turf war.
It came out, I think, in July, and I think in August is when all those big updates started hitting.
And then they released rank mode. They released tons of new weapons. They released tons of new stages. And I mean, near the end of Splatoon and launch of Splatoon, they were almost completely different games as far as content goes.
Oh, no
so
question.
I think if ARMS gets the same kind of treatment that Splatoon does, which this is a new thing for Nintendo, adding this much new content, going through the stages of the game. But if it has that same, continual momentum that Splatoon did, I think it has potential to be a pretty good new IP for Nintendo. I don't know how they would move forward with that IP, but
and here I think that's an important part is the momentum, because when you have these new IPs, breaking out is kind of the big deal. I mean, we had Codename Steam come out for the 3DS, and that didn't do so well. And we look at ARMS. And I think ARMS... Oh, and I forgot to mention this, but they have confirmed lots of other modes. Or other modes is what they said. And based on the way I read the interview with one of the game's designers, it made it sound like some kind of not just 1v1s. Whether that's 4-player free-for-alls, whether that's 2v2s, I don't know. But it gave me the impression that he was talking about more than just 1v1s, in addition to some sort of potential single-player
Dude,
offering.
I need a Sakurai Kirby first, not a solo play, but a campaign mode. Anyways, okay, sorry.
A Subspace Emissary.
That's what I need. Okay. Anyways, go on ahead.
Dude, I think Smash still needs a Subspace. Anyways, so again, I think there's already been positive buzz about this game, and I think it's kind of muted right now, but I think as we get closer to launch, it will hopefully grow. But we have the ARMS at Evo Twitch chat memes that were going around, and ARMS did not meet the money needed to make the donation. That was Marvel is the one who won that one.
Didn't make it.
To no one's surprise.
So there you go. That's the news for this week.
But I think Nintendo has already mentioned esports as a thing they want to push, and I think ARMS and Splatoon are going to be that for them. And so let me ask, so we have Splatoon that I don't think calling it a breakout success is overstating it.
No, not at all.
I think Splatoon has very quickly established itself as one of Nintendo's top franchises. So while it doesn't necessarily have to be that big, what does ARMS need to do, or what needs to happen with ARMS for it to be able to reach that same sort of success, or at least good success?
That is an interesting question. Give me a second to think about that.
And if then while you're thinking, I'll
Okay.
go, because I'll tell you what I think it is. I think Splatoon. I think you talked about the content that came out. I think ARMS needs to be positioned very quickly amongst. Well, first off, just at the base, marketing. This game needs to be pushed. It needs to be pushed right alongside all of those other big titles that Nintendo is doing. It needs to be
partner with Twizzlers.
It needs to be seen as a Twizzler partnership. It needs to be seen as one of the big games that Nintendo is doing. From then on, push big in esports crowd, and then like what Splatoon did. And what Splatoon did was cool. I think there were two big things that really helped Splatoon, considering the lack of content in the beginning of the game. Was one, the test period that they did. Do you remember that when they did like the server test?
Yeah, I'm forgetting
The
what they're
stress
called.
test?
Stress test. That's what that was. Yeah.
I remember when that happened, and there were a ton of people that logged on to it, and it got a lot of word of mouth from that. And I think, and I don't know necessarily how you could do that with ARMS, but I think something similar to either like a big event, like maybe bringing it to a big tournament or something, could do a lot for it. I think, or just some other way to get it into people's hands. But the second thing, and I think this is arguably Splatoon's best thing, is good characters and ways to interact with them.
Yeah.
I think Splatfests, I think, even though for a lot of people it was kind of annoying, the Callie and Marie, a little intro thing when you boot up the game, they instantly being seen with other people, like those quickly push these characters to the front. And ARMS is gonna, I think ARMS doesn't have quite the innate appeal that the Inkling design does. I think if they can still push good characters, that will help it a lot. I think that's where a single player will really come in handy to kind of develop, because there's already been, I'm sure there are game explainer videos or whatever that go into all the little stuff you see in the stages, but there's already been a lot of little, there's been some little lore secrets that are kind of teased. Like there's one stage that looks like that has like prototype ARMS people in glass tubes filled with some mysterious liquid and just crap like that world builds. Because I think with that, and then the continual push through content that it had is what really helped Splatoon stay strong. Because at its core, Splatoon is a fantastic game. But as a new IP, that isn't always enough.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. With Nintendo, their characters are almost everything to their games. Looking back, like Zelda sells because people like Link. Mario sells kind of because Mario's Mario, but Mario is an iconic character that has set himself apart and says, okay, I am Nintendo. And that's why you see success of Smash Brothers, things like that. Amiibos are selling well, while there is extra content that you get with them. A lot of people are just buying Amiibos because they're really awesome and they like the characters that, the Amiibo are based off of. So I see, as you're talking about, these characters and the world they live in, if it's something interesting and the gameplay can back that up, that is what will make ARMS successful. And that's exactly what Splatoon did. Specifically in Japan, the merchandise is crazy. Like, you can buy Splatoon anything, but...
The fact that there was a Vocaloid Callie and Marie concert kind of says volumes.
That's kind of a big deal. I don't see ARMS concerts being a thing, but if they did it, a lot of Japanese people might be all over that, so...
Yeah. Well, and I think on that same point, I think someone like Isabelle, which Animal Crossing New Leaf did really well, I think Isabelle does a huge job for the Animal Crossing franchise because it does provide, I mean, aside from the villager itself and like maybe Tom Nook, but like Isabelle provides a very recognizable face for Animal Crossing. And I think that helps. I think the Squid Sisters and the Inkling itself, generally the female Inkling, is very iconic now amongst Nintendo, and it helps that franchise. I think Nintendo's going to have to keep pushing it, but I think based on what I see gameplay wise, I'm super excited to play it. I think, and it's got online play. I think it could be a lot of fun, and Nintendo's approached it in the usual Nintendo style of being like, hey, we have these 3D fighting games, but it's a little different. I wonder if we could do one this way, and they ended up coming up with all the stretchy arms and stuff like that. But,
yeah. On Twitter, I see a lot of Japanese people saying, yeah, like, I'm going to be the world's best arms player on a train. So.
Hey, it'll be... There's not a lot of competitive or games at big tournaments that you can play on the go.
It's true.
Not a lot.
I don't know how that's another interesting thing to talk about. I actually don't know how it's going to be competitive wise. Like, I don't know if esports is going to be connected to this game whatsoever. I could see it, but I would really have to put my hands on the game to know. So
we're already getting pretty short on time, but I'm actually optimistic. Even though Splatoon hasn't really taken off in the West, at least esports wise, that it has in Japan, I feel. I think there's something that ARMS has in its favor that will allow it to maybe do better than Splatoon did.
Interesting.
And who knows, maybe with Splatoon 2, it will just like reignite it, and on a bigger launch or install base, it will just kick off. But anyways, I think the big thing that ARMS has in its favor is it is a traditional fighting game. Well, I shouldn't say traditional, but it's a fighting game. And the reason that's good is because Smash Brothers is already huge.
Yeah.
Whether you're a Melee fan, whether you're a Smash 4 fan, whether you love both, whether you hate all of them and think 64 is the way to live. Smash is big. It gets a lot of viewers, and the Smash community is going to do, like, it's going to be one of those things that if a lot of people are showing up for Smash tourneys, it's going to be really easy to do an ARMS tourney as well. And I think as the game gets more exposure, and I think ARMS might do a better job of pulling different fighting game pulling people from different fighting game communities than maybe Smash on its own could do. And I think because of that being, like, already I know a lot of, I saw early hype around ARMS was from people that are big in the Smash community, like from D1 or Nairo and people like that. So I think it being a traditional fighting game makes it easy to have at fighting game tournaments where Smash already is, and that Smash is already huge. And they can get that limelight. Arguably, Pokken had somewhat of a similar time, and you could argue Pokken hasn't been huge, but then again, you look at, I don't know if you've seen the Evo donation drive at all, but Pokken put up quite a fight for what is arguably one of the fighting game community's most beloved franchises.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, it was up there with some of them, and I mean, it lost to Marvel, that's not, nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I think Pokken is a fantastic game. I hope they do a remaster Switch version. But
yeah.
All right. Let's wrap this sucker up. And we'll use this as a segue into the next one. But no, we'll sate your guys' appetites, and we'll give our most anticipated. We'll talk more about leaving March, April-ish, and we'll talk more about late 2017, I think, next time, because there's quite a bit to talk about there. But let's end it. Let's call this a day. Again, these podcasts, we do them every Wednesday. We're doing them live. There's obviously a lot of growing and improving to be doing. Of course, for example, I just realized that I never changed the name of the stream. So everyone who is viewing talk shows in Twitch sees podcast testing and probably thinks, oh, I don't need to go there. So that's a flub. But yeah, Wednesdays. I'm Wonder Raid or Raid. I do Twitch streaming by the same name. Jellyfishing, if you want to plug yourself a little.
I'm Jellyfishing. I do streaming of Splatoon and Gigantic recently, but I'll probably be streaming some Switch in a month, less than a month. So there you go.
Jellyfish
N,
right?
N. Yep.
Right on, dude. Yeah, if you want the Japanese scoop, this is your man to go to. Although honestly, if he does a Japanese scoop, he'll probably just find the viewers anyways. But I digress. Thanks y'all. Thanks everyone for hanging out.
All right, have a good one.